listening to the Balancing Act podcast. Here's your hosts, Jamie Wonko and Joe Vitale.
Hey, so we are officially recording. According to
Welcome to the Balancing Act podcast. I am Jamie Wonko. I am here with Mr. Joseph Vitale. Hello, Mr. Vitale.
Well, hello, friend. How are you?
Lumberjack today? A regular lumberjack?
Yes.
Fresh from the woods?
Still freezing because, New Jersey doesn't have springtime anymore. It just goes from winter, fall, spring, and then immediately into summer, where we sweat and we live like we are living in the inside of someone's mouth. That's basically what it feels like because of the humidity. It does get very humid here. Shout out to my barefoot neighbor, one of the cooking people that I love to watch, who lives in Mississippi, who always says that. It's like, I live in Mississippi where it's like living inside of someone's mouth. So my spices always get clumped up. And I'm like, you're amazing. I love that guy. So yeah,
I've never heard that before, but okay.
These are the thoughts These are the thoughts of a rambling man who we are in the throes of the beginning of a new marking period, pushing towards the end of the year, out through the depths of hell, which I also call March, and into a new fun time for
springtime. That ring-a-ding-a-ding time.
Yes. So we have a wonderful guest with us today. Who shout out to our colleague. Jacqueline, who it does listen to the show.
Oh, yes.
We love Jacqueline. Jacqueline, who keeps our freezer stocked with candy that she buys from the dollar store. Shout out to the almond Snickers that she buys, because those are the ones I try to snack on when she buys them. So let's bring her in. Let's bring in Jennifer Mazzochi. Am I pronouncing that right, or did I forget already?
It's Mazzochi. That's
Mazzochi.
correct.
I was so close.
Hello.
Okay. You sound like a wonderful dish at an Italian restaurant. You sound like, I will have the Mazzochi and vodka sauce.
There you go. Yes. I went from one Italian last name, Petneo, to then married to Mazzochi. So I just kept that Italian name rolling.
Yes. And as I've said before, any friend of Jacqueline's is a friend of mine, because she is one of the sweetest, kindest, nicest people, kindest souls. So I appreciate the fact that she even connected us. And here we are. So glad that you were able to join us.
Thank you so much.
And again, you are from our great state, from the great state of New Jersey. So we'd love to hear about your journey into teaching and what you do these days and all that fun stuff. So why don't you tell us a little about yourself while you're here?
All right. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jennifer Mazzochi, and I have been teaching for over 20 years. This is actually my 24th year teaching. I'm a special education teacher. I teach in South Jersey. I have taught with a variety of people over my career in school. On a side note, I'm also a mom. I have 2 young boys. I'm married. And then I have known Jacqueline. I was thinking about this the other day, knowing I was going to be on here. Her and I have known each other for almost 40 years, which kind of blows my mind when I think about that. But I've known her for a really long time. As far as teaching, I've pretty much been in the same school my whole career, middle school, 6th to 8th grade. I've taught self-contained, I've taught resource center. And my favorite, where my heart really is doing in-class support, resource support. I love co-teaching, and I've been doing that for over 20 years. So right now, I'm not only an educator, but I'm also a speaker. I'm speaking at a lot of different conferences and consulting with different districts and going in for PD for my co-teaching connection workshops.
So can you talk about what that looks like? Like if I walked into one of your workshops, what would that, I know it's probably tailored in different districts and stuff like that, but what's the general gist of what you cover? And talk about when you do a PD for a school district about co-teaching.
Yeah. So with co-teaching, everybody knows the different models, and most educators have been in some form of co-teaching. Whether you've been the special education teacher, you've been a regular ed teacher with a special ed teacher pushing in or there all day. And they always, whenever they give us PD, I mean, let's be real, most of the time when we have PD, it's really boring and not very interesting. And a lot of time I feel like the co-teaching PD they give us is, these are the different types of models. Here's a video. This is what you can do. Mine is nothing like that. I actually talk about how co-teaching is just like dating. And so you are dating the person that you are teaching with. And what it is it goes through, it's a relationship. And how do you deal with any relationship in your life? I relate that to ways to deal with co-teaching and using relationship as kind of like that anchor, because everybody's been in a relationship and we kind of go from there. Really, the first thing I ask everybody to do is you need to look at yourself. The more you know yourself and the type of teacher you are, you want to be, and who you can be, and share that with your co teacher, the better relationship you'll have. That's like foundation number one.
That is fantastic. That's fantastic advice just to
It
get
is.
started.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I've been in various co-teaching environments throughout my career. Early in my career, I sometimes got paired with people that were on their way out. And they were like, "Yeah, I have to do this year, and I've never, taught this subject before, so I'm not learning the new curriculum, and I'll just help the kids wherever I can." And then you're like, "Okay, so I guess, and so we're doing this. This is how it's gonna be." And again, I didn't have I I'd love to hear you give old me advice on how I should have handled that situation, but that might be a subject for a question or a comment for another, section of our talk today. Um, but yeah,
So you
so
say treat it like you're dating, except that if you're dating, you don't have to keep going out with the person. And if you are
Yeah,
in a
exactly. So that's
teaching
the hardest
situation,
thing.
you don't
Yeah, that's the hardest thing. I
yeah.
think what one person had said at one of my workshops, they're like, okay, so yeah, relationship. They're like, but it's like a bad marriage. You can't leave. I go, kind of, yeah, you're in it for that year at least. So, you have to figure out how can you make it work. So, like
Mm,
you said, you were kind of like eyes open, like, oh wow, like, know yourself. That's the first step. If the pair from the very beginning writes down who they are. So just think about who are you as a teacher? Sometimes, we've been doing this for over 20 years. I know both of you have been in education for quite some time as well. You just take for granted that you know who you are, what you want your classroom to look like. But the person who's new that's coming in with you might not know you from anywhere, or they may know you just from passing in the hallway or seeing them in the building. But do they truly know what your classroom looks like and what you're all about? That's why you really need to share who you are so that that person can get a better picture of what the experience will be like together. So, I mean, anything with co teaching always relates to communication. How are you going to communicate who you are and what you want? But how are you going to communicate it to somebody and they want to actually hear it? How do you make somebody want to hear what you have to say? So I always talk about how I always had the best experiences with teachers who had like a really open growth mindset. They were those plants who always wanted to learn something new. If I came in and had an idea, they would listen. And sometimes they tell me, you're crazy. That's too much. Other times they'd be like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. How can we make that work? Those are the great experiences. The other experiences I've had, which kind of sounds like you had, um, they don't care. They show up, they're there, they're not putting in any effort. I call those the rocks. That's the fixed relationship. They're going nowhere. They're not going to grow. And you just have to figure out how are you going to continue to grow and water yourself and have a good experience in the room. So tend to try and bring as many ideas as I can. But if I see a problem, I always bring a solution.
yeah. No, that's great. And those are all issues I had earlier in my career as I went on. So at a previous school I was at, I got paired up with a teacher that was social studies by trade, but also had a special education degree. And then we wound up co-teaching together, which was great because we were both passionate about the subject. And she had that little extra something to, help with, the modifications and differentiating instruction, and kind of would like rein me in, which is great because like there are times when I go off on my crazy harebrained ideas and be like, well, that might not actually work for the kids that we have, and we would have these great discussions and actually have a good friendship because of that. And I'm currently with another teacher who, you know, I mean I give him a lot of credit because he puts in a lot of work and a lot of time. Both inside the classroom and out for himself, for his family. He's a high school football coach. Um, He's also he's also the winner of the Hi Hello How Are You award from
It's true. Yeah.
our Hello Police. She has a badge. That would be Jamie. Just hey, how are you? Good morning. Good morning. How are like he's just a very nice guy. He's also incredibly well read. He'll be like, "Oh, I read this book," or "Oh, I just watched the most recent adaptation of
Oh, yeah.
The Count of Monte Cristo that was in French." It's like, "Bro, when do you sleep?" Like
Yeah.
and he's got a 3-year-old daughter at home and you know, she's adorable. But no, it's a great relationship. Um, and it's one that I'm really looking forward to continuing if we have to do this. But you know, next year, of course, it all depends on numbers and demographics and who's in what class and all that stuff. But I really
Well, that
enjoy the
can be the incredible disadvantage when you finally do
yeah.
have, you put in the work of that relationship and you're making really great progress. It's a great pairing, and then you're separated.
Mhm.
And, so that has been like a source of frustration for me. I went through a time period where in 7 years, I had 7 different co-teachers. And so every single year it was someone different. And it
And you're
was
starting all over again.
and you're every time
Yeah.
you're starting over again, and so that was really, really tough. And then I remember I got to repeat someone a second time, and it was just so great just because we, like, knew, each other, and we knew, what the pacing and the experience together, and they understood what was going on in the classroom. They knew they could try things if they wanted to try them. You built that relationship, the trust between the 2 people, only to have it then torn apart, which can be very, very difficult. That's the part of it that is so frustrating, I think, for so many people.
Yeah.
I
And
agree.
I also or you know, even before I got your advice, Jen, when I knew that Mr. Harry and I were gonna be working together, shout out to Bobby, um, I made it the point to, like, talk to them at the end of the school year. I said, "Hey, man, I haven't done this in a while, but, like, I'm excited to do it. Like, you know, it's gonna be great for the kids, and also liked teaching social studies, so and I said, like I told him a couple things. I said, like, I do, executive function coaching for a company out of Virginia, study skills. And I've looked at a lot of research in regards to deadlines and, you know, kids handing in work. So I have a very specific policy in regards to late work that I make sure parents are aware of, that I make sure the kids are aware of, because it's research based. It's like there's a deadline, things are due. If you hand it in 24 hours later, you get 10 points off. After that, that assignment is missing. So there are very strict deadlines to your work because life has strict deadlines as well as you know, the fact that we can't just hand anything in whenever we want to, right? But I also told him, like, if there is something that you would like to teach and I get tunnel vision and I'm like, go, 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 like, just tell me to slow down and be like, hey, I want to do that unit or I want to do that thing. Like I said, I want that communication because I know that's a weakness of mine where like I have a tendency to just train track through, not like rush through material, but like I have a path of where I want to go, like what we're going to do next. But if there's an order you want to do things or a lesson you want to do, or like, oh, I did this in my class, like, let's do it, man. Like, just tell me and we'll do it. I just need that, like you said, the communication to know that you want to do those things so we can incorporate them into our classroom.
Mhm. You also made a really good point that I also talk a lot about is you told him what your weaknesses are. That's what you need to share with your co-teacher. You need to share those strengths. You need to share those weaknesses. Just like when you're starting a relationship, sure, in the beginning, it's all wonderful and you're only putting your best foot forward. So that's maybe the time when you're sharing your strengths. This is the type of teacher I want to be every day. This is what I want to do. This is what I want out of this relationship. But just as importantly as sharing all of that, you really need to say, hey, I really struggle. So, this is a funny story. So, one of the co teachers I worked with for years, her and I always had the agreement that I always worked with the smelly kids. In middle school, we always have smelly kids. She could not do it. So it was always just like our understanding that whoever was the smelliest kid in our room happened to be mine. Luckily for me, after I had my kids, I like lost my sense of smell. Not COVID related, just I don't know. I mean, it's there, but it's just not.
I'm really sorry I'm still laughing. I don't know why that struck me as so funny, but just because I have the sense of humor of a 12-year-old. I
Because
just
you know how true it is.
I at the beginning of every fourth marking period for 26 years, I've had the same conversation. The clothes you wore in September They might not fit you the same here in April and May. So please make sure that you try those things on before you wear them to school. And if you are asking yourself, should I wear this to school? The answer is no. Number two, if you are not wearing deodorant, you should be. And if no one has ever told you that, now they have, because I don't want you to be the stinky kid in the 7th grade. So let's make sure we are wearing deodorant. And it just made me laugh because like I thought about that conversation. And also the fact that like you get the stinky kids, which
I get the stinky kids. I do, but if somebody has to work with them, it might as well be the person who doesn't have the great sense of smell. So, and that's what you have to do. You kind of pick, what are your strengths? What are you good at? Like when I'm put into a language arts class or even a social studies class, that's not really my forte. I am a math teacher through and through. Math and science, that's where my mind is. That's what I enjoy the most. But I let those co-teachers know, I'm like, I am not the strongest language arts teacher, but this is how I can help you. I'm great with the computer. I'm great with the smelly kids. I'm great with coming up with games and interactive, different interactive things for us to do in our classroom. I love to get out of the room. So I like to do parallel teaching a lot, but not in the same room because I don't know what middle schooler or what any student can listen to two teachers talking at the same time and pay attention to one. I always didn't understand that model. So I take that model in the hallway. I'm always a big fan of, hey, I'll take them in the hallway. I'll walk around with them and do an activity in the hallway and then send them back to you. You can send the other half out to me. So I'll do anything like that. I always just say, maybe language arts isn't my strong suit. So I might not be able to explain theme as well as you or know the ins and outs of every character in this novel, but I will help in other ways.
And it has to be, there really does have to be that type of like survey of, what are the subjects that you're really most comfortable. I mean, because it's such an unrealistic expectation for special ed teachers to have to, jump into different subjects, especially the ones that they're not, fond of, right? Like we all got to pick what subject was our favorite, and that's what we teach, or where our strengths lie. So it is so important, as a starting off point to say, this is, which subjects do you want to teach in? Which ones would you rather not? And then if you are forced to, at least to be, open and say, this isn't really my thing, but I can do A, B, C, and D. Which is, excellent. I worked with a teacher last year who had come from an elementary school and had taught special ed and even like autistic children for over 20 years. And she had decided it was time for her to come to middle school. And although language arts is her strong suit, they needed her to, pop into a history class. So it was like the first time. And every single skill that she had in her teacher toolbox was applicable. And she was unbelievable, fantastic.
She is
I mean,
great.
just to jump in there. And I think that that's the other part also, like for the special education teacher. It's like, you don't have to be, you can leave that kind of deep content knowledge to the gen ed classroom teacher, but all of those other things that are so valuable. And, jump in there and get, so anything that she wanted to do, anything she wanted to try, anybody that, she sort of, any ideas that she had, it was like, yes, let's do this. And I just actually for autism awareness, she had made these really fantastic stations last year. And I just said to her the other day, like, do you mind if I use them again? I don't know if you're going to use them and it was like, no, of course not. And go for it. And great. And, and it's like, I'm still missing her all these months later. So, when it works, it's really.
I did ask you if I could use those stations before, and I did do some of them last year. So I hope my students are.
Oh, good. No,
that
you know what?
have now.
I made some new ones.
Good.
So yeah.
I might actually look at that and do some of those as well because she was willing to share.
Yeah.
I think for both of the teachers, like the one, Tony, who Jamie worked with last year, and Bobby, who I work with this year, they're very much like, not like their personality, but like the way they approach the job is like they're an improv actor. It's like, yes, and like there's never a no. They're like,
Right.
yeah, let's try it. Let's do it. What? Sure. Why not? Well, okay, great. Stations. Let's do it. Hey, we should use that TV, or we should do that game, or, we met with, uh, when we talked to Jamie, and I mentioned about the idea of like you had the one station that has like coloring,
Mhm.
and then you discuss like questions and talk about them. I mentioned that to Bobby, and he was like, coloring. Like, I don't know. Like, he's like, you really? I was like, shit, let's try it. Let's try it. It wound up being the best one, and we had
Mm.
the greatest conversations with those kids there, to the point where it's like now we know whenever we do stations, there has to be some kind of coloring thing,
Yeah.
even if it's juvenile, like we're like coloring a flag, and we're talking about the president, the executive branch or whatever. Um, so yeah, it was. It's great when they have that, when someone has that kind of attitude, because I have also heard people talk on the other side of it, right? About like their relationship is struggling. Like, sometimes I'm the one doing all the heavy lifting, that,
Oh,
or
I've heard, "Why don't you just pay me? I'll do both because I already do both of the jobs."
Mm. So
well,
that's where
I wasn't gonna go there, but yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that's
Yeah.
and
I
that
mean, that's,
sucks.
and then it becomes one of those sticky situations because now you're talking about someone that you work with that
Yeah.
everybody, and it's really now you're, kind of demoralizing
And
somebody that
I even made it the point to
colleague.
go up to Bobby at one point. I said, "Hey, you know what? Every once in a while, I hear my coworkers talk about this relationship and that person, and it might not be going that well." I said, "But I'm just letting you know, like, I don't have any of those issues with you." I said, "And I know I ain't perfect, and I don't make everything, but I appreciate our relationship. I think it's, to the point where, like, in my summative evaluation for the year, like my principal did make a comment, like, their relationship is very positive. They're, doing great things for the students. I'd like to see them do more of this next year." And we had already talked about like, oh yeah, we do want to do that next year. We do want to do more of this or that. And like, we tried reading a novel this year because I hadn't done that in a while, because I was telling a coworker today, like, she was like, "Oh, you're reading this novel in class?" I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of wanted to do a literature thing and read a book, and we discuss it. We talk about it. We look at some of the themes." And I was like, "Because if I do the same thing every year, like, I get bored, and I don't like, and then if I get bored, I'm like, man, I don't want to be here. I don't want to be like that. I
Right?
want to be enthusiastic and enjoy what I do." Anyway, sorry, rambling, but, yeah, I
Well, I
think
can
it's
tell you special education teachers never get bored because, like you were saying, we get pulled in every direction. We're always teaching multiple subjects. This year, we teach in blocks. So I have 3 blocks a day. I have an 8th grade science class where we're, of course, starting a new curriculum. I have a 7th grade math class, and then I have an 8th grade math class. So luckily, it's all of the subjects that I enjoy, as opposed to last year when I had a language arts class thrown in there and the regular ed teacher was on maternity leave. So that made it even more stressful because, like I said before, I'm not the language arts minded teacher. Um, but yeah, we're never bored and we're constantly trying to be flexible and change up our game plan and learn the new content because unfortunately they do move the special education teachers around so much. So what I've learned is like one of the best ways to be a helpful co-teacher, two things. Well, I mean, I have a whole list of the ways to be successful and we kind of talked on quite a few of them. First one is share the workload. And whenever I talk about sharing the workload, it's not a 50-50 share, but it is a share. So most likely you're teaching with somebody who's done this for years, they're maybe the expert in it, or they're doing it all day long. Whereas I come along, I'm just there for 1 block and I'm gone. So my share isn't a 50-50, but I definitely need to have my part. I need to be able to, make some of the activities, grade some of the papers, not just focus, and especially this, because this bothers me so much, not just focus on the special education students. I have
yeah.
a few teachers I've heard who
Absolutely.
are like, I'm going to take care of my kids. I go, all of the kids are your kids.
Yeah.
It's a class, both of you are a class. And some special ed teachers like, no, 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 I'm just going to take care of my kids. I'm like, that's not how it works. When you're in that room, they're all your kids, and you have to work with the other teacher. It's not like these are her kids and these are your kids. That is not how it works. So that's one of the just changing some people's mindsets about what co-teaching is, because sometimes, I mean, a few weeks ago, one of the kids is like, why are you teaching the lesson? You're the assistant. I was like, Wow.
And
Okay.
that's what I don't want.
Yeah,
I
same.
and I unfortunately still, that's something I also struggle with. Like, I wanna make sure that I incorporate, him as much as possible, but there's a lot of times he's helping out those other kids. So I try to be cognizant of that, to be like, "Hey, do you wanna do this lesson this time?" Or "Do you wanna do this unit? Do you wanna plan these stations?" Like, and have him like, "Okay, you're a star of the show here. I'm gonna be the guy that's going around and helping people and doing all that stuff." So we try and do that as much as we can.
You know what?
Um
Ironically enough, like I teach just as much as the other teacher does, and this is like halfway through the year they're saying this. It's the mindset that they know that that teacher is in that room all day long and that I come in and out. I don't know, it's just something about it. No matter how much you teach, I think that's one of the hardest struggles to get over. Even if you have a very supportive co-teacher and you are both teaching the lesson, still there's something about it because I'm always walking into their classrooms. So, there's
Yeah.
always that. So, try and support your co-teacher as much as possible because it's hard on them. I mean, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and some days I'm like, "Really? How do they think I'm the assistant? I just taught the entire
Yeah.
lesson the other day," or
Yeah.
"I made all these activities. I'm just as busy as the other teacher." But I think it's because in middle school, they walk into that classroom and they know it's, whoever's classroom. This is Mrs. Wyatt's classroom, not Mrs. Mazzochi's classroom, even though it's both of ours when we're in there together.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, we tried really hard to one of our goals was that the kids couldn't really tell who was for who. And we really it was most important, I think, for us that the students continued to guess, so that there wasn't any sort of idea of like, oh, it's just Mrs. E's kids, or oh, those are Mrs. Wonko's students. And we also had a very unique situation because we had so many ESL students
Oh,
in our
yes.
class together. So not only did we have a large special ed population, we also had a lot of ESL students. So it was a completely and totally like all hands on deck situation. And as a language arts and social studies teacher, the special education teacher had some of those students a couple times a day.
Mhm.
And there would
Oh,
be
yeah.
days when she just had to give me a look and I knew, like, that was it for her with a couple of the other kids because they had already spent a great deal of time together. So they kind of needed their separation as well. And we got to the point where we just could kind of just glance at each other and we knew, like, okay, I'm tapping, you tap in, I'm tapping out. I can't, yeah.
Mhm.
Which is a challenge because as we know, middle schoolers are challenging.
Yeah.
Every
That's
day.
Every day.
also good that you were able to recognize that, because
Mhm.
that's a dynamic that might get missed.
Yeah.
Where I believe that, Mr. Harry is in with he's in with yeah, so he doesn't have oh, there go the balloons again. These damn Max. Uh,
Hooray.
hooray, hooray for Mr. Harry. Okay. So, now the balloons distracted me and I can't remember what I was gonna say. Oh yeah, he's with different teachers at different grade levels, so he does not have that situation. But we do know that there are some tough kids where there's some moments where, like, I know it's escalating, and I'll be like, "Hey, well, yeah, why don't I step in there for like," or you just go in, or there's times where I feel that the kid needs that like, he's playing good cop, and it's time for me to come in and be like, "Hey, no, we're not talking to somebody like that. That is not how we are reacting. That is not the environment that we create in this classroom. Absolutely not." And even though he's very calm and level, he never raises his voice. Calm, level-headed. I'm the guy that'll like step in and do that, which is very rare because my wife calls me can of snakes because I don't ever really get angry or blow up. But when I do, it's like can of snakes. You like open up the little prank thing. And there I go flying off the handle. So I think it's important to realize that like we complement each other in that way, which makes the relationship even that much better. So,
So what about, brand new teachers? What are some of the things that you say, or would give advice to them, just starting out? You can start with maybe with, advice for, like, new special education teachers.
Okay. As a new special education teacher and you're walking into maybe even just one or multiple different classrooms, the first thing I would tell you to do is observe, especially if you're in with a veteran teacher. Not sit back, but observe, see how they handle situations. Because, if you're a brand new teacher, sure, like you're excited, you're ready to get out there and start teaching every day. But there is a lot of value in watching other people teach and how do they run their room. So, like, first off, I would say, observe a little bit before you come in with a million grand ideas. And the reason I would say sit back and observe a little bit longer, especially if you're a new teacher, is that sometimes a veteran teacher might be put off immediately, but well, you're brand new here. Like, just give it a minute. And if you are going to come in with some suggestions, I wouldn't give a million suggestions at once. So kind of really take it for a great learning opportunity. I remember I learned so much. I mean, I did not teach a lot. I really observed a great deal my first two co-teaching relationships that I can remember, because I was with veteran teachers. And when I say veteran, they were like old school. They had been there for like 30 years. And I mean, they ran the building and they were tough. I mean, this one teacher that I worked with, he would call me Hun every day. Hun, can you do this? Hun, can you do that? And at first, it completely shocked me, but I observed how he taught and I learned so much from him, so much good stuff. And I learned a lot of bad things or things that I knew I would not take away. So as you're in there, new teachers, know that you're observing and like learning from people who've been doing this for a while, but also know that not every teacher is a great teacher and that some of the things you're seeing are probably things you might not want to do. For instance, at this point, I would never allow somebody to call me Hun in front of the students, but I also have been there a lot longer and I wouldn't feel as intimidated. So that would be the first thing, observe. Also, try not to let them intimidate you, even though I'm telling you, this 60-year-old man telling my 23-year-old self, can you do this? Can you do that? I was like, sure, okay. So try not to be intimidated. Try, if you do feel overwhelmed, try and find somebody that you trust that you can talk to see if they can give you some advice about how to deal with that person before you take it upon yourself to just, get all angry at them. So that would be two really good things. And the third thing I would say is know what your strengths are. That if you're a young new teacher and maybe you're working with a teacher who's been there for a long time, if somebody's been in this business, I'll call it a business, our show performances every day, because that's what I feel like I am on stage every day.
Yep.
We have a lot of tricks, but we've kind of let things go. And if you kind of remind us of some new, fun, fresh ideas, that's what teachers need. We need to keep giving each other different ideas and remind each other of our whys. And maybe you're fresh out of college and amazing with technology, and the person that you're with has learned technology as they went. Like, they didn't have one-on-one computers when I don't even know, when was the first time we got computers in my building? I think I had like one classroom computer when I first started. Now they're all
Yep.
one-to-one devices, right?
Yeah.
So it's just crazy. So you can, like, your strength could maybe be that you're very savvy with technology and you could help that teacher learn things that would help them there.
Did you ever watch Everybody Loves Raymond? Do you remember that show? So on Everybody Loves Raymond, they had the daughter, and then they also had twin boys. And the grandpa would come from across the street, and he would like smell the top of their heads. And Deborah used to say, like, I know my father-in-law was here because I could smell his cologne on the babies' heads. And he would say, like, I'm sorry, I'm sucking their youth. And he would just, smell them. And so that is how I feel about new teachers. Like, I want you to be so shiny and so bright and so excited that I'm just blinded by all that because you're not jaded. You're ready to go. You have all the energy. And so I want to have that experience from them. So I would hope that they know that is, if they can get through some of the, curmudgeon-y practices that some of us do have, because that's what happens after 20 plus years. You do get a little bit jaded with different things, but we want to, get all the energy and youth that you have and give it, hopefully it'll be contagious in our practice every day.
I think that's an interesting part of the dynamic, which would hope that if I ever get paired with a younger teacher, just fresh out of college. I almost said high school. Fresh out of college, that I'd be able to still have the energy and the foresight to be like, I want to make sure that they have a good experience and learn the right things from me, and also try to absorb a little bit from them
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
re-energize yourself in the career, right? Because we're in a profession that you have to constantly be learning, or you become a dinosaur and you die. And you mentioned the technology thing. Like, that's what I had to decide to do, because it was either like I didn't grow up with this stuff. I didn't grow up with computers. So it was either like I'd be a dinosaur and go extinct with my short little arms, or I dive myself in and learn and understand because I knew that's where the puck was moving to. Um, that's an important realization to come to. But I'm also curious as to if you were not a special ed teacher and you are working with a veteran special ed teacher who's maybe stuck in their ways, what suggestion you might have to that new teacher to improve that relationship. When or at what point should they get their administrator involved as well? So that's what I'd be curious as to your advice on that one, because
Yeah.
that's a slippery slope to talk about.
So, I mean, as a new regular ed teacher and you're brand new, again, I would kind of give you the same advice I would give a new special ed teacher, in the way of, if somebody's coming in. So say I started working as a 20 some year co-teaching expert, even if I was in a language arts class, as a special ed teacher, I would tell this regular ed teacher, like, yes, I might not be the content expert, but let me show you how I would run this or how I would do this. And I would give them the same advice. I would say, use that block or that period to learn from that teacher. As comfortable as that special ed teacher is with teaching that content, kind of maybe step back, tell them how you did it maybe in your other blocks, but give them a chance to lead the lesson and learn from how they would present it. And the other thing is so sometimes we think that we have to do the exact same lesson every block for every kid. So all the seventh graders get the same type of experience. Well, not every teacher is the same. Not every class is the same. The When you teach by yourself class doesn't have to look exactly like when you have your co-teacher in the room. It should look a lot different. So I kind of feel like I would give the same advice. Um, to both, whether it's a regular ed or a special ed teacher, as long as that special ed teacher is, comfortable. And if they're a veteran teacher, they're comfortable. Okay. I can run a language arts class if I have to. Do I choose to? Do I say, yes, sign me up for that? No, definitely not. But any teacher who's a veteran teacher, whether it's a special ed or the regular ed teacher, observe them, learn from them, because they have so much to offer you. Um, when do you get administration involved? Well, before administration, I would start with, go talk to, if in your building you have a mentor, talk to your mentor first. I would talk to whatever friends you might have made that you trust. Now, obviously, as a new teacher, you have to be real careful who you want to start talking to, because you don't know the dynamics of the school.
Very
Um,
good advice.
yeah,
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
do not know the dynamics of the school. The people who have come up to you, who smile at you every day, who truly say, let me know if I can help you in any way. And they've said it more than just that once to be polite. Those are your people, new teachers. Go find them, because they truly mean it. Like, they will help you. You can see, or who do people talk about, as far as like our lead teachers in the building? Maybe talk to that. Like, we have core leaders. So we have, the eighth grade teachers that are in charge, or the seventh or sixth grade. I would go to them next, talk to those teachers. I run the like mentoring, it's called support on site, for all the non-tenured teachers in my building. I don't know how many other buildings have something like that, but that's the person I would tell them. I would tell them to go to all those people before they're bringing it up to administration. I mean, you need to talk to a lot of other teachers in the building before you want to step foot in the office with a problem like this.
I agree. Yeah. What about support on site? Is that something that your district provides? I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, so one of the teachers, she presented this, and we have something called support on site. We have, what do we have? 8 elementary schools, 3 middle schools, and in every building, they have a teacher, which would be in my building. It's me. I'm the leader of it. Once a month, I have a meeting after school for an hour with all the non tenured teachers, whoever wants to come. It's by choice. If they don't want to come, they don't have to come. And we just kind of give them the lay of the land. This is what the building is like. This is who you can trust. This is what you can expect. Like, I just had my meeting yesterday and I was like, okay, so testing is coming up. This is
Mm.
what state testing looks like in this building. And just to give them, before we have the real faculty meeting of sitting down and hearing about it, I'm like, okay, this is what it looks like when you go on the website. This is what you're going to press. This is what you're not going to press. And just kind of giving them an idea of what it looks like. So that's what it is, support on site. And so so we're like the mentors to everybody who's non-tenured. So if they have a mentor, they still get a mentor, but then they get me as well. Like they can come.
Oh, do you get paid for that?
We do. Yeah.
Oh,
That's great.
we talk a lot about on the pod about what you get paid for, what you don't get paid for, as far as teaching and how different the newer generation is with saying no, how much better they are at saying no than we were, right? I mean, I totally can relate to your Hun story because that, it was just, yeah, you just smiled and nodded and were polite. And I mean, I was doing my student teaching and one of my cooperating, the person who comes from school, and she came and she safety pinned my skirt, had like a little like a slit in the back. And when I tell you I'm like the most modest dresser now in 1999, like it was not, and she pinned my skirt. And I think about that often of like, why did I let, like, what, and you just, now we've gotten to the point where we encourage like speak up for yourself and it's all right. But that's interesting. Yeah. So that's a great program because then they know that they have you to come to. I love that.
hmm
I've never
And
heard of
as
that.
like, so we also like, and then we meet all the support on site, like I guess a supervisor, I don't know what it is, whatever the technical type leaders, we all meet together too and share ideas like, oh, this is what I did in my building. Oh, we try and do like themes and different things. So it's a great program. Every school should have it, honestly.
They really should, because we talk so much about the new teachers, the non-tenured teachers, and how much they struggle, or how many of them seem to present like that they already know, but they don't, or they are too afraid to ask, or so there's just so many different parts to that. So that's excellent. I love
Yeah.
that idea.
I also speak on that as well. So if you go on my website and stuff like that, or anybody wants to reach out to me, I speak about, so like my three things that are my top things: co-teaching, how to work with a paraprofessional, because it's pretty much
Hmm.
co-teaching again. And, how can you make that successful? And also new teachers, because I've been mentoring new teachers for probably at least 12, 14 years. Actually, you know what? Ironically, one of my first, um, people that I mentored, I just said to her, I go, "Oh, look at this worksheet I found." I'm like, "It has my maiden name on it. Remember when I was pet Nao?" And she's like, "No, I came like right when you had gotten married." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness. Okay." Cause I feel like you've been here for so long, but so that means I've been, doing that for like 15 years now, mentoring teachers. So I do a lot of that as well.
That's great. And I think that those of us who have the ability to mentor and the expertise to tell a new teacher, or not tell a new teacher, but to help a new teacher acclimate to the job, because we've talked to a lot of people in the academic side of the profession where these kids, in air quotes, come into the classroom, having all of their practicum stuff and all these things, but like once the door closes and you are on your own, all of that goes out the window. And it is literally the analogy that I've used many times is you are building the plane as you are flying it. You are figuring all this out as you go, which can be a very daunting task if you don't have a support system in place that's going to help you acclimate to your building and also figure out all of the ups and downs, ins and out of this profession, which is becoming more and more challenging by the day,
Hmm.
as we know. I think it's also important that we, as some of the advice would be, and I tried to remember where the quote was from, to ask more questions than you answer, right? To make sure that you are being inquisitive enough and asking the right questions, but making sure that you're not giving unwanted advice to those who maybe don't need it at specific times. I think that needs to also be part of the relationship too. Um, I don't want this to sound crass, but like when we're coming in and we're in a new learning experience, like knowing that you are in that space. I don't want to say know your place because I think that's obnoxious, but like you need to know what space you're in to understand, like, okay, how am I going to grow in this space? How are you going to find your voice in the classroom? I think those are all things that are important for a new teacher to learn. And that co-teaching relationship, if you have a new one, can either foster or have you take some steps backwards if it's not a positive one, for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been such a great talk, Jennifer. We appreciate you sitting down and talking with us today.
Yes,
Thank
I appreciate you too, Jennifer Mazzochi. God damn it. Mazzochi. Yeah, I'm gonna go order me some Mazzochi with vodka sauce after we're done here.
Mazzochi rhymes with sake. How about that?
There you go. See, you always got something clever.
That
This is
work?
like
Or
our
sake. I don't know.
yes.
Maybe it
So
doesn't.
again, Jen. Absolutely. Jen, thank you again for joining us. You can check out Jen on Instagram at Co-Teaching Connection. She also has a website where you can find links to information about booking her or her other PDs that are there. She's a wealth of information about the co-teaching relationship. So please give her a follow on all the socials. So thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next time on the Balancing Act podcast.
Bye.
Look for the Balancing Act podcast every week on your favorite podcast platform. New episodes drop every Tuesday. Thank you for being a part of our audience. We appreciate you.